And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Barton Simmons. That's Tom Fornelli. I'm Chip Patterson. We're sitting here 12:51 a.m. here on the East Coast. Conference Championship Saturday is in the books, but Week 16 is not, as Arizona State and Oregon State continue to close out the Pac-12 schedule. Congrats again to the Pac-12 champion Oregon Ducks on Friday night. Lots to get to. We've got Clemson being very impressive. We've got a 52-46, a preposterous, repulsive final score in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Cincinnati against Tulsa was very interesting. I thought that Oklahoma, Iowa State was good, and Ohio State and Northwestern. Barton, I almost want to throw to you first because you said, I need this, like you owned Northwestern. I don't even think it was here on the Cover 3 podcast. It might've been on the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports HQ, where you demanded a little bit of time. You told everybody to stand down. It was an alpha HQ move to be like, yeah, I know we're supposed to only go 30 seconds here in the D block, but you guys need to hear what I've got to say here. And I loved it. I went into this game, big noon Saturday, Big Ten championship. Northwestern comes off. They're up 7-3. The defense is flying around. They're doing a great job. I didn't want to jinx any of it. And I didn't want to sort of mess with the vibe of the general conversation in the group chat, but I want to know, were you proud of the effort that your Northwestern Wildcats had in Indianapolis today?
I was. And I think I was more hopeful than expecting of that. And there they were, with every opportunity to win that game in a very Northwestern way. I think, this is that did kind of validate their season in a way. And I know in a way you could argue it just sort of devalues Ohio State, but I think probably the bigger takeaway is most people came away from that being like, all right, wow, okay, this Northwestern team is kind of pesky. They are actually pretty good. I only got one Twitter shout out for my money line parlay this weekend. I guess I went a little too hard this weekend to get multiples. Happy championship week. Apologies, this is too long from a random fan. First, thanks for the low-key shout-out. However, I'm a Barton A&M fan, but you cannot fully endorse all your sprinkles this week. As a fellow Boilermaker, I don't mind betting Indy to cover, but I could not look myself in the mirror if I were to cheer them on to victory. That and desperation is a stinky cologne, my friend. I did back the NU and OSU play because that would be hilarious. I suspected hits and carries Barton A&M to victory. Anyways, good luck and get ready. Get the champagne ready. End of message. Next message, a screenshot of Northwestern, Notre Dame, Minnesota money line, $5 bet paying out $18,000. And the message, I'm a degenerate. F it. I punched it in. I couldn't get out of bed if it's hits if I bet it. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, there was a believer out there. I think Northwestern's pretty good.
All right, Tom, you live blogged that game. Are you cool starting here? I feel like you're deeply tied into it, and Ohio State winning the game makes me feel as though, because we're going to get into this tonight, and we're going to be back with you on Sunday with that college football playoff rankings reaction, and we're going to be talking about number 4, right? And I don't think that Ohio State is part of that number 4 debate. I think they have cleared that. But in breaking down that game, what'd you see from Ohio State? Because we don't have as many data points on the Buckeyes as we do on everybody else. And this was a good challenge.
I'm going to start with Northwestern, actually, because
that's cool.
Barton, you're very proud of your Northwestern Wildcats, and that's great. And I even tweeted after the game about how amazing Pat Fitzgerald is, and whoever the new AD is at Northwestern, the very first move they should make is to make sure that Pat Fitzgerald is there forever, because then your job becomes immensely easier, because you're never going to get a better coach than you already have. But I'm not going to take the plucky underdog. Oh man, they made it a close game. Good for them. No, Northwestern blew it. Northwestern had a chance to win the Big Ten today, and they blew it. And Ohio State kept giving them more chances, and Northwestern kept blowing them. So I think that we've reached a point with this program where it can't just be the plucky underdog anymore. Like, this should be the expectation to be playing in these games for them. And I think they're getting there. And if they want to really reach that mountaintop, I think we have to stop treating them like oh, look, we're so proud of our little friend here. He's just a little up and comer. No, they could have won the Big Ten today, and they blew it. And Ohio State didn't. Ohio State tried to blow it numerous times. They kept shooting themselves in the foot. I've covered a lot of Ohio State games this year, and I've written in a lot of live blogs. And my takeaway is that Ryan Day is like a lot of offensive minds and play callers, in that he really falls in love with passing the ball because it's good. Like, passing the ball is how you win games for the most part. But when it's not there, he falls in love with passing the ball. And like early in the season, like we were talking about how Ohio State was having trouble establishing the run and getting its run game going. And it was because they weren't giving their run game a chance. But when you were watching this game today, the run game was working right from the jump. It was like you could, every single time Ohio State got the ball, its first play would be a handoff to Trey Sermon, a zone, an inside zone run. And he would pick up 10 yards, like every single time. And then they'd start throwing. And Justin Fields, who was clearly at the end of the day, he's wearing like a wrap or a brace on his hand. He's got some sort of problem with his thumb. He's looked horrible all day. He had no accuracy. And they kept putting the ball in his hands and having him throw. And it kept nearly killing them. And then finally, Ryan Day woke up and said, oh, maybe I'll just give it to my running back who's averaging 12 yards per carry constantly. And that's what they did. And that's when they won the game. But it's strange to me because you mentioned we're going to talk about the playoff talk, and Ohio State's in.
Yeah.
Like, if they were in at 5-0, they're not going to be knocked out at 6-0 after picking up another top 15 win. And the people talking about this and pretending like there's a chance they're going to get knocked off, I don't know if they honestly believe it or if they're just doing it because they feel like it's their job to talk about it.
They're bored. They're freaking bored. That is what people that are saying Ohio State doesn't belong in the playoff are just talking because they feel like they need to put words in their mouth.
It is so dumb. And like, I feel like it's the same story as with Indiana earlier this year. Ohio State picks up a close win against a highly rated team. People treat it like they lost. Ohio State picks up another win today, wins a conference title against a top 15 team, and people are talking about it like it lost. It's like, no, they didn't lose a single game. Like, I'm hearing people argue about how, well, Texas A&M, their loss to Alabama was a good loss. Ohio State doesn't have the resume. Ohio State doesn't have a loss either. Like, how are you going to argue at 28 points? Anyway, getting off topic. I don't think this Ohio State team is great. We've talked about it. I do think that this Ohio State team is one of the 4 best teams in the country, though. But as we've talked about time and time again, there's a huge gap between the number 1 team in the country and everybody else. And we'll get to it, I'm sure, soon. The Clemson team that played today, there's a huge gap between them and everybody else, but there's still a gap between them and Alabama as well. So, yeah, Ohio State's going to be in. They're probably going to be the 3 seed. I honestly think they should be the 4 seed because I do think there is merit to the argument about teams playing 11, 12 games while they only played 6. But I think they'll be at number 3.
So Clemson, Notre Dame, part 3.
I think the committee's going to do everything it can to avoid it, but I think if they were actually ranking it based on it, I would my own rankings. They had us turn ours in tonight.
Same.
I had Clemson at 2 and Notre Dame at 3, just because again, 10-1 to me is still more impressive than 6-0 when that 1 is just a loss to number 2.
I agree with you, and I did the same. And I was clarifying. I said I don't think this will happen because there's no way they run it back in the semifinals. But if you were asking me to rank them 1 through 4, I'd keep Ohio State at number 4 and just swap Clemson and Notre Dame. But because you mentioned it, in case you missed it, Trey Sermon ran through 331 freaking yards. Mm-hmm. And you're right. It was like a play calling decision there for a little bit where the run was working. Joel Klatt was calling it out on the broadcast early, and we were talking about it. Like, running the ball was working, and that was something that when I was throwing out the Ohio State Northwestern under and discussing that on CBS Sports HQ, a lot of it was, we haven't really seen Ohio State be able to get the run game going outside of Justin Fields. Whether it was the Michigan State game. I can't remember which other game before that. There were a couple of times where it kind of felt like the best run play for Ohio State was going to be Justin Fields either extending the play, taking off, or designed run. And look, Justin Fields still does end up with a big part of the run game here against Northwestern. He also ended up getting sacked a couple of times. But Trey Sermon ran so hard. He ran I wanted him to get that last touchdown, not because it would be that sweet double play of not only hitting the Ohio State live line, but also the 17-point line also, because they could have won by 19 on that last drive when he was running it in. But because I thought he deserved a 3 touchdown with 3 bills on the line. But Ohio State running the ball well against Northwestern is a good sign. Justin Fields and the rest of the offense not working as well, not a great sign. Though, if we start to preview it with the idea that they're going to be facing Alabama, with everything we saw from Alabama and Florida, I think that game becomes a little bit more interesting. I don't think that Ohio State wins that game, but I don't think that Ohio State falls into that Oklahoma against LSU, into that Washington against Alabama or Michigan State against Alabama path that we've seen from some of those 4 seeds in the past.
And as much as y'all talking about Trey Sermon, I do think that Ohio State offensive line deserves a lot of that credit. Like that was there was a lot of those runs where it just felt like I wasn't like blown away by what I was seeing out of Trey Sermon. I was just blown away. I was just sort of impressed by what was opening up in front of him. And by the way, that Northwestern secondary is kind of sick.
Yeah, isn't it?
That's good. That's a good group.
Because that was the one thing that stood out to me too. Because like you mentioned, I tweeted about it. I compared it to it looked like Ohio State's offensive line was shoveling snow, like just kind of shoving it out of the way, and then you'd see snow go flying. Because they were blowing Northwestern off the ball when they ran, but it's when they would drop back to pass, like Northwestern wasn't really getting a great pressure. But what they were doing was they were dropping guys in coverage, and Ohio State's receivers were not getting separation for the most part. And Justin Fields is already somebody who's kind of prone to holding on to the ball too long as it is. And then he didn't really have a choice, and he wasn't taking off to run. And that secondary was just kind of, I mean, obviously not having Chris Olave had an impact because he is a big play guy for them. He's the guy that can find space in his zone. He's very good at that. But Northwestern's, their linebackers were doing a good job covering. Their corners and their safeties did a fantastic job. There just wasn't room for Ohio State in the passing game today.
So is that it? Feel good about Ohio State?
I mean, I feel good that they're going to be in. I don't feel great about their chances.
Did Jeremy Pruitt save his job against Texas A&M?
Well, no. I mean, of course not. Did you think that like the 21-point loss was a positive step?
I thought that with it being a home game and with it being a top 5 team in town, it was a temperature check on whether the locker room had quit. I didn't see a lot of quit. I mean, Jared Garantano apparently has decided to quit and go ahead and throw himself in the transfer portal. But hey, Harrison Bailey era has taken over. No judgment there. But
yeah, but did you see the NCAA internal investigation news that popped?
You think that's enough?
I think that was clearly leaked. There's currently an internal investigation related to potential impermissible benefits or recruiting violations, something to that effect.
Awful convenient that would.
Yeah, it's like, some tells me like that's not the first time an SEC school has had an internal investigation about impermissible benefits or recruiting violations, and that got leaked like before the game this morning. That tells me that someone wants him out of there. Yeah, someone that knows that information wants someone else talking about that information so that they can get him out of there.
But why did it come from the radio host first? Like
I mean, that guy's connected.
Okay,
he's not. Yeah, that guy's legit in that market.
I trust you, on that one.
And
Trey Wallace is the guy that broke in. He's connected.
And Wes Rucker tweeted about this too, because he said that he's like even as a member of the media, he's like, it's just something toxic about that program right now, in that an internal investigation is being leaked, and there's really no reason for it to be leaked other than we'll connect the dots. They're draping the crepe.
It feels like to me that it's not heading in a positive direction for Jeremy Pruitt, and maybe maybe Jeremy Pruitt's ready too. Like Knoxville has beaten a lot of men down, and maybe Jeremy Pruitt is just the latest.
I survived. I survived a night in Knoxville with Josh Dobbs and a few other people prior to Alabama and Tennessee. Still made it to call time the next day. It's all good.
How funny would it be if like Tennessee uses that internal investigation as like, cause to fire Jeremy Pruitt besides obviously the record, and then turns around and hires Hugh Freeze?
I know, right? That is the irony of it.
Yeah, because the investigation,
or the hypocrisy of it, right?
Is the with cause, right? Like you leak the investigation so that you can have some violations, and then that's going to trip something so you don't have to pay as much money in the buyout. And even if you don't prove it, like even if you don't even wait for the NCAA process to play its course, which is going to take some time, you can at least have that as leverage for the settlement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
How about A&M today, though? Did they convince you?
Okay, so I think I do believe.
Did you watch a lot of this game?
I watched some of it.
Okay, because I felt like that was the sickos game. Like there were two very competitive conference championship games with real stakes. And I felt like a lot of people were like, oh, but let's watch Texas A&M Tennessee to see how bad this gets for Jeremy Pruitt, or like whatever happens to Texas A&M. Like there was a cultural divergence. There was a taste test going on right now, because we haven't even mentioned Oklahoma's Big 12 championship win in a league that it just waxes every year, or the fact that this Iowa State team, again, just kind of like lured Oklahoma into that rock fight, especially in the second half. But again, tell me about Texas A&M and Tennessee.
Well, the game, whatever, the game doesn't really matter. I'm talking about more big picture,
right?
Like end of season. All right, the A&M results are in. The Notre Dame results are in, and we'll talk about that game obviously. But I do really truly think it's fair to say that A&M and Notre Dame are basically the same team. Like because here's the problem with it is Florida is sort of the issue here. Florida is the variable that is giving us some problems, because my eyes tell me, and tonight told me this, that Florida is one of the 4 best teams in the country. Like Florida's
offensively.
Whatever. I mean, that's the same. That basically is like that. Like that's what football is. It's who's the best offense. I think Florida is my Florida's best version of itself is a top 4 team in the country. If everyone's playing their best, I think Florida is a top 4 team in the country. Now, I don't think they deserve to be in the playoffs because they got 3 losses, and they didn't show up against LSU, and they managed to lose to Texas A&M. But my point is that Texas A&M's win over Florida is in many ways as impressive as Notre Dame's win over a depleted Clemson team. And so I do think it's reasonable to look at those two teams, and even the style they play, the way they win. Texas A&M doesn't blow people out. Notre Dame doesn't blow people out. I think that they are very much a toss-up. I think they're a coin flip in terms of who is a better team. I think on a neutral site, that's a pick 'em.
I think I agree. It's very fair to compare them, and they are very similar, both in the style of the play and the results. But I think that when it comes to comparing them to Notre Dame for a playoff bid, the one team Notre Dame lost to, it also beat. So its best win is also its best loss. Texas A&M played Alabama and got boat raced. And if you're going to use the argument against Notre Dame that, well, Clemson kicked its butt today, well, then you have to say Alabama kicked Texas A&M's butt. So why is one butt kicking better than the other? They both got their asses kicked by the elite teams in the country. But the other problem is that when you start going down the resume, Notre Dame has a win over North Carolina. What is Texas A&M's second best win? Because I think part of the problem with evaluating Texas A&M and Notre Dame right now is we just saw Notre Dame get killed by Clemson. But Texas A&M beat Tennessee. Before that, Texas A&M beat Auburn, and it was a good win. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like Auburn is an elite team. Before that, what was their last? South Carolina.
Well, what is it? What like cut the suspense? Like, what is their best win?
I
don't have their schedule in front of me.
It's Auburn is their second best win behind Florida. That's it. Like a 31-20 win over Auburn. It's either that, LSU, Tennessee on the road, South Carolina on the road, Arkansas, Mississippi State, or Vanderbilt.
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like we've talked about it. I think Texas A&M is a very good team. And I think that if you put it on the same field as Notre Dame, it'd probably be close to a pick 'em on the spread, no more than 3 points either way. But I think that when you get to that kind of similarities, all right, well, now we have to look at the resume. Notre Dame has the better resume. And by the way, there's been the argument in the last few weeks about, well, Ohio State, they've only played 6 games. Well, Notre Dame's played 12. A&M's played 9. So we can't punish Notre Dame for playing 2 more games.
I said on CBS Sports HQ, if you because y'all saw Jimbo Fisher was not doing any politicking until the post game, right? Like you didn't really see him on the forefront of like, we need to be in. Cause I think like we've even talked about this here on the podcast. The best thing Texas A&M could do is just sit back and see what happens. Then you get that last win in and Jimbo Fisher's going hard.
Brought out a PowerPoint to the Zoom meeting or something like just
out of control kind of like, I believe in this. I believe. You get Jimbo Fisher one-on-one, you get some truth serum in him. He would so much rather be in a New Year's 6 game that he could win than to go get thumped by Alabama again.
Well, I was thinking the same thing. So if you're Notre Dame, and let's assume that they would give Ohio State the 3 seed. Do you want to go play that 4 seed game?
Yes.
Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even after you just sort of took your lumps against Clemson.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how is that different than Texas A&M then?
Because Texas A&M already did it, and Texas A&M can sell. Texas A&M is like the selling of hope. I think is a little bit different. I feel like the salesman. You tell me, especially.
I don't agree with. I get what you're saying. I don't agree with it though.
Okay.
I think the Texas A&M would. I think Jim. I mean, hell, I don't know what his contract says as far as bonuses, but I bet you there's one for making the playoff. So I bet you Jimbo wouldn't mind getting that playoff berth. I understand what you're saying. I just don't agree with it. I think Texas A&M would want to be in it for the same reason that Notre Dame wants to be in it, because making the playoff, even if you get your ass kicked, is still good for your program, because you could say we are a playoff team.
Didn't help.
I agree. I guess I think of it more from the fans' perspective. Like, do you really want to sit through your team getting beat by 25? You do to Alabama rather than go to a New Year's 6 and maybe win that thing?
Well, Notre Dame's also fighting that uphill battle of it all of a sudden becoming a thing, right? I mean, even our own like company is like tweeting out the meme. What is it? The little corgi that's buff and then the corgi that's tiny. It's like Notre Dame against everybody else. And it's like the buff corgi and then Notre Dame against elite team. And it's the shrimpy corgi. Like it's funny. And there are results that kind of back this up. But
the problem I have with that though, like that, and I understand where it comes from, because, in 2012, Alabama just dog walked them. But when they got to the playoff a couple of years ago, Clemson then went on and beat Alabama worse than it beat Notre Dame the week before.
Oh, that's the Brian Kelly talking point.
But that's by saying,
no one ever talks about it. No one talks about the recruiting gap. No one ever talks about that.
Yeah, but of course Alabama's won those games before, so nobody holds. You're allowed to lose one when you've won them. So I understand where it comes from, but it's just like people talk about like Clemson killing Notre Dame in that semifinal. It's like, yeah, they killed Alabama too. That team was awesome. The same reason we think Alabama's going to kill everybody who plays this year doesn't mean those teams suck or they're incapable of winning those games. It means they ran into the better team.
They didn't kill top 4 team Florida.
Listen, Florida might be 2013 Missouri. Good team. 2013 Missouri was 12-2. Like they were really, really good. And they lost what was it, 59-42 or something like that to Auburn in the 2013 BCS championship game. Really good team. Good team. Not a national championship contender though.
I don't know if I agree with that. Alabama has been absolutely murdering people this year. And Alabama needed to like milk the clock to make sure they didn't have enough time left on it for Florida to get a game-winning drive in. Like that's not Missouri. They
Missouri
lost
was
to A&M.
good. Don't disrespect 2013 Missouri.
I know, but you get what I'm saying. Like I just think
Chip's got two rules, Barton, and one of them is don't disrespect 2013 Missouri.
They were a one-loss team on conference championship Saturday. They showed up ready for the fight. They finished number 5 in the final polls.
Yeah, okay. Well, maybe they're 2013 Missouri. I don't. My brain doesn't work well enough to remember years. But I think that
it's because we threatened that scoring total that I went back on the 2013 SEC championship game where I was like, okay, so what was that 2013 Missouri team? And I was like, oh crap, they were really good. They had kind of a fluky loss to South Carolina away from being like really, really, really good. And because it was the BCS era, we didn't care about who was number 3 or number 4. All we cared about was number 1 and number 2. And Florida State was the most dominant team all year. And so Auburn got the number 2 spot.
Oh man, back in the days of 2, we need to get this 4.
Get back.
We need to, no. We need to get this 4 deal up to 8. Get this 4 deal up to 8, and so then we'll be talking about 10 teams a year instead of 6 teams a year.
Can we listen? I need to make an agreement here if we're going to go to 8 when we do. Can we have set guidelines for who qualifies? Can it not be a ranking? Can it just be conference champions?
I'm with it. Conference champions, 5 conference champions, 1 group of 5, 2 at large.
Mm-hmm.
But see, that's a problem. Then the 2 at larges become rankings. And then we're sitting there arguing between 7 and 8
okay,
seeds.
Man. It's a little argument's all right. A little argument's not going to hurt you. It's going to keep a roof over your head. It's going to keep that paycheck coming, brother.
Hey, Service Academy under cashed again today with Army and Air Force. And that's what builds the house.
Mm-hmm. Said it on HQ this morning. So you see this house I'm in? Service Academy unders.
Coming up on the other side, we dive a little bit deeper into Clemson, Alabama, and other takeaways from the non-conference championship games next. So Clemson looking really good. Like really, really, really good. Almost effortless and machine-like in the way it took care of business. Notre Dame was the better team for the first 10 minutes of that game, but 3 drives into scoring position yielded just 3 points, and that was it. And that was totally ball game from there on out. Like, what is the value to Trevor Lawrence in for DJ Uiagalelei? DJ Uiagalelei threw for more yards against Notre Dame, but Travis Etienne ran for more yards against Notre Dame. And I think that's because of Trevor Lawrence. And I think that's because of Trevor Lawrence in the rushing attack. He makes everyone around him better. It is impressive. And I'm curious to hear what y'all thought about it.
I think we made 2 mistakes in our evaluation of this game going in based on what we saw in the first game. And I think you just hit one on the head, is that Trevor Lawrence's presence kept Notre Dame from just saying, all right, well, we just got to strap ETN and let this kid beat us. And I mean, because when we remember that first game, they dominated the line of scrimmage in that game because they were just swarming, stopping ETN, and DJ Uiagalelei, who had a great game, just wasn't able to do it on his own. Trevor Lawrence in there, you've got to respect the pass more. You've got to respect his ability to run, and that opens things up. That allows Travis Etienne to find the space that he did not find in the first game. But the second thing we neglected in our thought process for this game was that this was a rematch between Brent Venables and Tommy Rees. And Tommy Rees has done a fantastic job calling plays for Notre Dame this year. He's got all the signs of a very good offensive coordinator. But in a rematch with Brent Venables, we should have been like, oh God, no, Brent Venables is going to fix. Brent Venables will know everything that they did wrong, and he is going to fix everything they did wrong. And I don't know if Tommy Rees has that kind of experience and that knowledge yet to be able to counter. And that was what was evident to me, because it's like I'm watching that game and I'm watching what Notre Dame's trying to do on offense, and I'm thinking, man, everything that they were able to get in that first game, Brent Venables is taken away. And he didn't, and he took that, taking this away, taking this away, taking this away, taking this away, counter. And there was just nothing there. And then, of course, he had some guys back, and that allowed him to be a little bit more aggressive and bring a little more pressure than he probably did in that first game. And Ian Book was running for his life the entire game. It was so. That's it. I think Trevor Lawrence's presence had a huge impact on the run game more than anything. And I just think that the chess match between Venables and a young, inexperienced offensive coordinator just turned this game into a complete, domination from Clemson.
Yeah, I think deep in my subconscious, I knew that Trevor Lawrence's return was going to have a bigger impact than I acknowledged publicly. But I feel very dumb for not letting my subconscious like filter through my thoughts a little more clearly, because Trevor Lawrence was a huge, made like an incredible difference. And it, this, because the storyline was, DJ Uiagalelei, like 430 yards passing. But you're right, Tom, like Trevor Lawrence, like how do you stop Clemson right now? How do you stop him? He, and because Trevor, we know what Trevor Lawrence can do throwing the ball. We know what Travis Etienne can do running the ball, but Trevor Lawrence was brutal as a runner tonight. Like that was devastating. So yeah, I agree with that. And also I thought too that like early in the game, even when Notre Dame was driving down that second drive and settled for the field goal,
the 24-yarder that was missed.
Yeah. But even before they missed it, I was like, this is how you beat Clemson. Like, this is not a good thing here. You're going to go, like, you're going to have two good drives and you might get 6 points out of this thing. Or at that point, I was like, you are getting 6 points out of this thing. And then I don't know and then they missed it. And then I was like, this is really bad news. What's that dance?
Don't win game with field goals.
Oh, yeah.
Don't win games with field goals. You don't win games with field goals. Yeah, 51-yarder went in. Congratulations. But then the 24-yarder, no good, and the turnover on downs. And then it's a ball game.
Yeah, the turnovers on downs was brutal too, because that was there.
Avery Davis had it.
I think that was but I think that was on Avery Davis. Like, he's sprinting to the sideline, like, settle. I think Ian Book wanted him to yeah. Oh, did he say that? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So nothing insightful on me then.
No, that is insightful. I'm telling you that you've got a cosign.
It's validated. Okay, good. Yeah. I did. Okay. So now I'm just going to sound like I stole it from Herb Street. I didn't even know he said that.
Notre Dame had 120 yards in the first quarter and then 143 yards the rest of the game.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty good effort there by old Brent.
Yeah, I mean, once Clemson got the signs, they stole them all the rest of the game. They were good at best in the country at stealing those signs. We all know it. Tommy Rees just wasn't ready for it. He didn't have that curveball. Okay. Again, I will offer one opportunity. Oklahoma, Iowa State. It was a good game. Anyone got any strong feels?
Not really, except for it feels like Lincoln Riley has emerged as like this coach that doesn't have a killer instinct.
Ooh, elaborate. Yeah. I like that.
I mean, did he used to put his foot on people's throats? Because it feels like it's been a long time since I've seen him put his foot on someone's throat.
No, I mean, I think that I've never thought of this really. But I think even going back to the Rose Bowl against Georgia, like, they had the chance to put that game away, and they kind of got a little conservative for their own good. And Georgia came back, and it was a great game. But yeah, no, that's interesting. I think there might be something to that.
Let's something to investigate. All you private eyes out there, let's do some digging.
Starting with Sergeant Investigator Amanda Guerra, who's probably listening to this and kicking right now, and all of us saying that Lincoln Riley doesn't have a killer instinct as he wins his 4th Big 12 title in 4 years as Oklahoma's head coach.
It's too nice. Should have won him by more.
Right.
No, this was kind of exactly what I thought the game was going to end up looking like. It got there in a way that I wasn't really expecting, because I do think the way Oklahoma started the game, I was like, oh God, this is going to be a blowout city. Like, they're going to crush them. And then, like, they kind of just let their foot off the gas. Iowa State did Iowa State stuff, got back into the game, and then it was really fun and interesting in the fourth quarter. But I don't think either of these two teams, like, we were talking for a few weeks there about how Oklahoma was looking amazing, and they were. But the Oklahoma team that we saw last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was that they played their last game, and then today, does not strike me as that same team that really had a spark to it, like when Ronnie Perkins had first come back and they finally really discovered Ramondre Stevenson. I felt like that team was getting dominant. And I still think that this is a really good Oklahoma team, but it's kind of lost that edge a little bit. I think Iowa State's still a very good team. So I think overall, not the best year for anybody in the Big 12. I don't think that there's much of a playoff case to be made for either of these teams. And I think that doesn't mean that they can't be next year, because, Spencer Rattler could be another year in the offense next year. There's a lot of talent on that roster. Same thing with Iowa State. They're going to be another year older. They have some, experienced key players. Brock Purdy's going to be another year older, and another year in that offense, probably going to be improving. So I think that there's a very good chance going into 2021 that these are going to be the best teams in the Big 12 again. And I know Texas fans obviously hoping they could change that. So are Oklahoma State fans, but that's my biggest takeaway, is neither of these teams are playoff ready. And I don't know if I'm going to be considering them playoff favorites going in to next season, but I do think that these two are the best teams in the Big 12 next year again.
Well, that's sort of my takeaway is this was your chance, Big 12. Like, you missed your shot. This was the year Oklahoma had suspensions and new quarterback starter and all these, like, this was the year, like, someone had to get, like, next year Oklahoma is going to be better than this year's Oklahoma, I think. And I think the Big 12 missed their shot.
Cincinnati 27-24 winners against Tulsa. Did they validate all the outrage army?
No, I think they let the outrage army down, because
Me too.
They didn't blow Tulsa out, but I think Tulsa's a good team, and they've probably been overlooked for the most part all season long when we talk about the good teams in the group of five, because now Tulsa finishes the season with 2 losses, and their first loss was a close loss to Oklahoma State that opened the season, and their second loss was to a top 10 Cincinnati team. I think defensively this Tulsa team was great, and I think that they gave Cincinnati problems, and I think that we can't overlook the weather for this game. I mean, it was in the upper 30s and a very hard, steady rain. Players were slipping on the turf. It was a sloppy game. So you can't just pretend that didn't have an impact. But if you are a Cincinnati defender who is arguing that they should be in the playoff conversation, you needed a bigger performance than that. But all Cincinnati really needed was to win to make sure that they get to New Year's Six Bowl, because that was the best they were ever going to get anyway.
Yeah, true.
Agree. Anything else from the weekend?
I thought there was I didn't watch any of the LSU-Ole Miss game.
Oh, I did. It was awesome.
Sounded like it was just bonkers.
Dumb as hell, awesome, but awesome.
It reminded me of, like, if you're at, like, when you have, like, kind of like like a couple over for drinks or something, or like a couple friends over with drinks, and they have kids, and, like, you just want to, like, you're okay, like, you just want to enjoy adult conversation, and so you put the kids in, like, the playroom, and you hear crashing and banging in there, but you just leave them alone and say, you know what, we're just going to ignore it. We're going to have pleasant conversation. And then at the end of the night, we're going to open up the door, and the playroom is just going to be, like, absolutely destroyed, and, like, pictures broken and toys tossed everywhere. Like we're over here watching like the civilized games, and then like meanwhile on ESPNU or whatever it was, LSU and Ole Miss were just going like batshit.
Oh, bro, that was
Am I allowed to say that? Sorry.
That was the 4 p.m. SEC Network game. It was
right. Oh yeah. So that was when it was when the Ohio State game was going on, and no, it was when Notre Dame Clemson was going on, I guess. Yeah.
Right. Without a doubt. It was not the it was the was it the Natty Daddy? You know, Natural Light's got like a new like 8% beer that they're trotting out right now. Oh, I guess I suppose we're Coors Light only.
We're Coors Light podcast, Chip.
Coors Light podcast.
Beep that out.
But it was not it was not high quality at all, but it was endlessly entertaining.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was like the one play where Matt Corral, I think, killed a ref. That was funny.
Matt Corral had 4 touchdowns and 6 turnovers.
Was it 6? I know it was quite a few. Yeah, it was.
I mean, because so legit.
That was a Matt Corral game for sure.
It was bananas. Like that's the thing that I think I told y'all. I was like, you get these SEC West low stakes games. Okay, it was 5 interceptions and I think 1 lost fumble for Matt Corral.
I mean, this is going to be a box score. Let's open this thing up.
Okay, yeah. It's 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 5 interceptions, 1 lost fumble, 158 rushing yards, and 251 passing yards.
Like, Ole Miss had 6 turnovers. LSU turned it over once, and LSU won 53-48. Like, like if you're LSU, this is like 2 weeks in a row where you probably shouldn't have won, but you won. So at least you're ending the season on the high note. But yeah, also Keyshawn Boutte had 308 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns on 14 receptions.
14 catches, 308 yards, and 3 touchdowns. It's your freshman wide receiver.
This was just a dumb game. I feel like Lane and Ed met at midfield before the game and said, "Hey, you know what? Let's not tackle. Let's just have fun out here today, buddy." And that's exactly what they went out there and did.
Bo Pelini's living on borrowed time right now. You better go to the old LSU equipment room and grab all the gear you can, because you don't have many more days left, I don't think.
All right, so we've got our 2 things before we get out of here. Number 1, Tom, our Heisman ballots are due on Monday. We cannot reveal our ballots, our ranking, or our order, but I do think this is a relevant question. There's only 3 spots on the ballot, and I'm not asking for yours, but instead your survey of how everyone else might vote. And Barton, of course, interested in your opinion here too. I think Najee Harris did enough with 5 touchdowns in an SEC championship game to be able to insert himself into a conversation along with his teammates Mac Jones and Devonta Smith?
Yeah, I think that he's played his way onto more ballots. He might have already been on a few to begin with.
True.
But I think that, I mean, there's recency bias in the Heisman voting is just huge. Like it is in anything in this sport. It's like the reason we're arguing that Texas A&M deserves it more than Notre Dame, because Notre Dame lost to Clemson and Texas A&M beat Tennessee.
Right, so, but her emails.
Yeah. But it's just I think Najee Harris definitely helped his case. I think Kyle Trask, even though he played well for the most part, his case is probably done, because you combine that with last week. And I think that there's a very good chance, like, we're probably going to see 2 finalists from Alabama. That's what I would think at this point.
At least.
Yeah.
Trask is out unless there was a bunch of early ballots. And I'm not saying he should be out, but in a year like this, like, you ain't winning the Heisman with 3 losses.
And 2 in a row to close the season.
Mm-hmm. So, like, you know, deserve it or not, Kyle Trask, I think, is out. So, you know, did Trevor Lawrence do enough to get into the mix today? Just recency bias, best player in the country, future number 1 pick. You know, they're all cute stories, but Devonta Smith is the best player in college football. And
Justin Fields missed out on an opportunity today. And look,
he's donezo.
Yeah, I think he's been donezo.
Yeah, but I mean, he's good. Like, he's awesome.
Come on, but he's got he's donezo.
The question is most outstanding player. And I was willing to leave that door open because he is outstanding. Justin Fields at his best. Put the team on my back, though. Justin Fields is awesome to watch. He was not that Justin Fields today.
But he has not been that Justin Fields
all year
previously this season also.
I mean, he's had a very inconsistent season. Like, there are times within games where he looks like Justin Fields, but then there are times within those same games where he's just kind of disappearing off the radar.
As soon as y'all got that pro scouting report on Justin Fields about how he can't drive the ball like the best players, just
oh man, like it's like he hasn't played that great this year. I mean, he did the first couple games, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
No,
that was when he had like 6 touchdowns and 5 interceptions or 5 incompletions.
He carried the team against Michigan State. Again, we only have like 5 data points. So it's like, he didn't play well against Indiana, like played well against Nebraska, Michigan State, and he was so-so against Penn State and Rutgers. And that's the whole body of work.
All right. I'm going to reveal to you guys my ballot. I just came up with it. I hope I'm not forgetting somebody. 1 is Devontae Smith. Okay. 2 is Mac Jones. 3 is Najee Harris.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. See, that's the thing. Cause like I usually at this time, I have a very good idea of who I'm going to vote for. You know what I mean? It's like you kind of form the opinion, and then it's like you go into every weekend, especially late in the season. It's all like, all right, either convince me further or let me see if somebody else kind of emerges that, like your number 2, see if they can gain ground. But I really, this year, because I think part of the problem is like you just put the shining example. There are 3 players on the same team that are all very worthy of Heisman votes. So it's like now you're not just trying to handicap players from different teams and in different situations. You're trying to handicap players from the same offense. It's like, all right, well, which one of you 3 is the most important player on this offense when all 3 of you are clearly incredibly important to the offense? Because I don't know. It's a difficult situation this year.
My guys got a chance though now. Like all of a sudden, like it was like the reporters are jumping on it. Like it's Devontae Smith for Heisman and Darren Rovell sucks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like those are like the 2 things like you're supposed to believe now as a reporter. And so I think the movement is caught, and I think we got a shot at this thing.
I mean, even Ness said it like, oh, that could have been the touchdown that clinches the Heisman for him. And then he was like, or one of his other teammates. It's like, yeah, I definitely think that he is the Twitterati flavor of the last couple of weeks for sure. But whether
you're holding out because there's 927 Heisman votes and a lot of them aren't on Twitter.
I think that, not to get political, I think that if there's anything we've learned in the last 5 years,
don't trust the polls.
It's that the people that you follow on Twitter aren't necessarily indicative of the rest of the voting electorate. You know what I mean? So I think that he's going to have a good shot, but I don't know. I think that, quarterbacks are quarterbacks and everybody loves quarterbacks.
So there's going to be a recount after the Heisman.
Oh, we're going to have a lot of lawsuits. It's going to need the Supreme Court to weigh in. It's going to be a mess.
The good people at Deloitte who are in charge of all the accounting of all the votes will not stand for any allegations of fraud with the vote counting. This isn't Dominion voting machines here. All right, y'all.
Hey, if I can, I'm curious, like what the going rate in Russia for like a bot farm is, because I'll dish out a little scratch for a bot farm to get the Devontae Smith for Heisman hashtag going.
How far does $500 go in a Russian bot farm?
That's what you got to do. That's politics now, man. That's what you got to do.
When we start selling merch, we'll have a shadow item in our shop that can just go to the pot farm for whatever campaign that we're trying to jump on. And right now it is Devonta Smith for Heisman. So we'll see. All right. We will be back with you on Sunday.
Oh, hold on. Before we go, shout out to San Jose State.
This was up.
Winning Mountain West, undefeated. Good for them. That was a great season for them.
Oh, yeah. By the way, Coca just reminded us. Your boy.
Oh, Bret
Bielema. The new head man. The new face and voice and belly of Illinois football.
We're back.
I gotta say, I think they missed an opportunity. I think Lance Leipold was going to be the right fit there. But how you feeling, Tom?
I'm good with it. We've talked about it, you and I, for all week. There's been kind of it's been pretty much between, from what I was hearing and you were hearing, is between Bert and Leipold for most of the week. I thought it was going to be Leipold until last night, and then there was kind of some smoke coming in the Bert direction, and then I woke up this morning to a news release from Illinois in my inbox announcing Bert, and I think it's a good hire. I think that if you're Illinois and you look at the situation your program's been in for a long time, I don't think that you could sit there and say that there's a better hire for you than Bret Bielema, based on what he has accomplished and based on what he can be able to do for your program. Like, you're either relying on an up-and-comer who you don't know, and you're getting a name that's actually proven it. And it's very rare that Illinois, or a program of Illinois stature, is going to get that name. Now, will it work? I don't know. I do think it was a good move. I am confident that Bielema knows what to do to at least make this team a bowl participant on a regular basis. And I do think that he's going to be able to do a better job to kind of continue what Lovie Smith did with the program, because Lovie Smith did not have the results on the field, but he was key for a lot of stuff off the field to get Illinois kind of caught up with the rest of the world as a football program. So it's going to be interesting. And at least I know press conferences are going to be a lot more entertaining than they had been under Lovie Smith.
Content machine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the thing, is like Bret Bielema comes back and he is the head coach at a Power 5 program. We're just like green light. Like, it has been that way since Wisconsin. It was heightened because he was in the SEC at Arkansas. And now the Big Ten content machine is strong. Like, it rivals the SEC. And so to have him at Illinois, like, we just drooled over Lovie's beard, and Lovie didn't offer us anything to back up that beard. All he did was have a beard. Like, Bret Bielema has a physical, like a physical aspect, but then also backs it up with personality and quotes.
Yeah. And if you look at his time at Arkansas, like in the middle of like that 2014 to 2016 stretch, when the SEC West was like, Jesus, like from top to bottom, there was everybody. Like, that was, the Dak Prescott Mississippi State was #1 days. Hugh Freeze was getting it rolling in Oxford, and of course you still had Alabama, Auburn, LSU, and like Arkansas had some good seasons in that division for a 3-year stretch. That it's like, I understand that for a lot of Arkansas fans it wasn't good enough, but if Bielema is able to do that at Illinois, he's going to be a god. So we'll see.
Is that the Bielema was the head coach for like the 4th and 16 or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the game against Ole Miss that knocked off Ole Miss, that allowed Alabama to be able to bounce back from the Ole Miss loss.
Yep. And I mean, he got a lot of, obviously they lost games, but he picked up, when you're in the SEC, you're playing a lot of ranked teams, and he beat a lot of ranked teams too. And Illinois is not accustomed to beating ranked teams. So again, he's accomplished. He's probably the best, as far as safest hire that I think Illinois could have made this, outside of Luke Fickell. I think he was probably the safest available play.
Oh, I was in attendance for his last head coaching performance in a bowl game. He jumped out to a 24-0 halftime lead against Virginia Tech and blew it in the second half. 35.
Hey, and that kind of started the end for him. Yeah.
That'd be a step up for Illinois.
I'll take it.
Blow some halftime leads in bowl games.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take it.
It was a great Belk Bowl. Great addition of the RIP Belk Bowl, now the Duke's Mayo Bowl. You can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fernelli. You can follow him at Barton Simmons. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. We will be back with you on Sunday with reaction to the college football playoff final rankings. Gentlemen, thank you very much.